Good morning. That last presentation was fantastic. That was amazing. Hopefully I can add a little bit more color to what's happening from an IT perspective globally and give some idea of how this industry is changing and why people are even in this room to begin with. Digital transformation can mean a lot of things, and unfortunately I only have 25 minutes to fit in the entire story of telecom and IT, so that's going to be a bit of a challenge. This is a very simple slide. I really like the context of the last presentation with regards to the customer journey. This is just a snapshot of what happens in 60 seconds. On the internet today, what are people actually doing? And as users of the internet, we're all involved in this as well. But if you look at the companies that are here, these companies, in a lot of cases, didn't even exist maybe 2 years ago. They certainly didn't exist 10 years ago. And we tend to lose track of the fact that mobile phone technology, as we know it, has really only been around for 10 years. When I say as we know it, I mean as an internet device. Obviously, we've been speaking for years and years. At the same time, even fixed broadband has really only been around for about 20 years. So we're really only talking about the last 2 decades of technology here. This is an amazing acceleration curve that we've never seen before. Facebook has now just said that they have 1.8 billion users. And up until recently, when I would present these numbers, those are predominantly fixed users. And for those in this room that have used Facebook, at least when they remember first putting a profile, my guess is it's probably a fixed experience. But now 90% of Facebook users access it on mobile. And in fact, 55% are mobile-only users. So that's a real testament to how this landscape is changing. But what it comes down to is people want better experiences. I agree with that last argument we heard about these companies haven't really done anything super creative with technology. All they've done is looked at it from the customer perspective. What would make life easier? And that's what the value of the younger generation brings that we didn't have for a long time. For decades and decades and decades, the younger generation were told to just follow their elders. And if they had an idea or if they questioned something about why isn't it done this way, why isn't it done that way, we didn't really embrace that as creativity. We just took that as insubordination. We no longer do that. Now we embrace that creativity. When someone young says, I don't understand, you have a car and I would like to go somewhere. We're both on a messaging application. Why can't we just message and coordinate and next thing you know, you're driving me around? Instead, we think about regulation and policy, and we think about protecting established businesses. That's the wrong way of thinking, and that's actually contrary to what the internet concept is all about. I'm not going to dwell a lot on the technology that's running behind this, so I just want to talk at the high level. So cloud services. Cloud services is more than just cloud. So cloud, we tend to think about servers and storage and connectivity, but cloud services are really the applications. So if you actually install something on your mobile phone today, that's a cloud service. There's still a lot of people that don't understand this concept. But if you ask someone that is using any type of application on their phone, where is that application hosted? They have no idea. They might say it's on my phone, or they might say it's somewhere on the internet. But the point is they don't need to know what country it's from. We have no idea what server we're connecting to when we're accessing a YouTube video. That's really what these cloud services are all about. 60% of applications run in the cloud by 2020. Big data. What does big data mean? Big data is really about results. It's not just about data storage. It's about combining analytics in a meaningful way. And the more we can use that to do predictive analytics, the more value it brings. One of the challenges here is that telecom may not be able to produce that analytical behavior the way the vertical industries want. So we don't need to. Instead, we can create a platform. We can create APIs. We can create an environment where those enterprises can come in and use that number crunching facility for their own benefits. So for example, how healthcare might use that data would be very different than how a smart city might use that data. So this is very important. It's about opening up platforms. It's not necessarily about creating the individual vertical solutions themselves. It's about the platforms. And of course, we all understand that everything is about social. If we had just 1 cent for every Facebook like that happens, we'd be very rich people. Who would have thought Facebook like was even something that would have existed 5 years ago? And now it's incredibly powerful. It's a marketing tool. 84% of Facebook's revenue comes from mobile ads. A testament to the fact that everything's shifting towards mobile. Everything is. The younger generation of technology, they do not think about being tethered to anything. They will probably never plug a cable in their life, aside from charging their device or plugging in their headphones. That's quite common. So it's no longer just about the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is really all the other things that are connected that do not include people. But let's talk about the entire concept, which is the Internet of Everything. That includes people, so the 4.4 billion Internet users that will exist in 2020. The population projection is about 7.7 billion at that point in time. 90% of those, or 80% of those, will be smartphone driven. But there will also be a huge set of devices, 26 billion, and again, this depends on who you actually hear the data from. But we're talking about tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of connections. This will be everything from cars to a few more devices, which I'll show you on another slide. But the data that's generated, we think of us as generating the data. The future of the Internet will not be us that's generating the data. And the bulk of big data is not generated by us, it's generated by things. So I just want to sort of highlight this small box here on the bottom right. That's a new product that's called the Sense. Highly recommend you check out the video. It's one of these Kickstarter type new products. What this thing does is it plugs into your electrical panel. And we all know when we turn on lights, we hear a bit of a hum. We turn on the washing machine, we hear a different hum. So everything that's electronic has kind of a natural sound signature in terms of the power that it consumes. This thing plugs into your electric panel, and it can actually identify individual appliances in your home. And with the companion app, it can tell you that the curling iron in the upstairs bedroom is left on, or the outdoor light was turned off at 7 o'clock. And it does that intelligently by looking at signatures. Now that's a groundbreaking product. That's a very good example of using internet and analytics to do something that makes perfect sense to us. Now we can actually optimize our electricity bill. Evolving technology. There's a lot of strange things that are going on here. So the idea, for example, is Starbucks delivering coffee with drones. I'm not quite sure how that will play out. I think a lot of people will get injured. But regardless, they're still driving towards that. And even big companies like AT&T now are investigating the idea of using 3G and 4G networking for drones. So you can now actually do seamless flying of these devices across the country. You no longer need to be within Wi-Fi range or whatever radio technology you're using. The Amazon Dash button. This is a very interesting model. It was sold out the day it launched. This Dash button is a little tiny device specific to one product, and when you press it, it automatically reorders that product for you. So for example, I place one on my washing machine and I'm out of Tide, which is my laundry detergent. I press the button and a day later I have a new box of Tide just running in my house. These things actually cost those companies $15. So I buy one for $5 as a consumer, Tide has to pay $15 for the other half of that button. In addition, they pay a commission, 8 to 15% of all the purchases that happen through these buttons, these dash buttons. They actually have to share that as a commission back to Amazon. Very interesting technology and really changing the way people are behaving. I'll talk a little bit more about VR on the following slide. I just want to mention a company called Magic Leap, which is something that's quite quiet. I don't know how many people in this room have heard of Magic Leap, but this is really the next generation of virtual reality or mixed reality technology. And I'll explain a little bit more about what that is. But they had a Series D round of financing of $740 million US dollars. They believe it to be probably the biggest in history. They don't even have a product, and already their valuation is $1.4 billion US dollars. And I'll explain about what they do. Another interesting product is this thing down here called the Assistant. Google has a product called Google Assistant they just launched. Amazon has one called Alexa. We've all seen similar technologies on our phone through Siri, for example. And what this is meant to do is allow the smart home, or the future smart home, to be interacted upon by the human voice. So no matter where you are in the room, you can just say, turn on the lights, turn on this, turn on that. And it uses context. It knows where you are in the house, and it knows what lights to turn on. So I don't need to say, turn on bedroom lights. It knows I'm physically in the bedroom. So I just say, turn on lights, and it turns on the correct lights. These are real technologies. These are available today. And this is what the home of the future begins to look like. In terms of content, there's really three dimensions that are happening. The first is one that we always understand. It's talking about the definition, going from standard definition to high definition. We have TVs out there that do 4K. Very soon we'll have 8K televisions. And there's even talk of going upwards to 32K. But I personally have a different opinion on that, and I'll explain why. I walked into the Sony store just yesterday, and they had a 100-inch television. Now, when I was younger, I would have been all over that. I would have put all of my money into that amazing television. But it was, if I remember correctly, it was about $30,000, maybe? Oh, sorry, I'm mistaken, $7,000. Regardless, still a large sum of money for television. To put things in perspective, the best VR system currently available retails for about $1,000. Inside that VR environment, I can create the biggest TV I want. And it's with me all the time. Do you think that the next generation of users will be thinking about TVs the same way we do? That is the focus point of the leader? I don't think they will. They already have their faces in their phones. So it's much more likely that they will adopt some type of technology that's quite different than our behavior in terms of watching television. Mobility is absolutely critical. 60% of mobile data in 2020 will come from video. 80% on fixed, mobile video, but that would be 60% for mobile. That means most people are watching television, but I mean, imagine what happens when you start talking about VR. 5.2 gigabits per second is what the human mind, or at least what we've been able to calculate, can process in terms of audio and video at any one time. That's a long way to go for us to be able to get that type of resolution. So the point here is that the bandwidth curve is still very, very steep for the next couple of decades. VR's come a long way. VR really tends to be something that you do inside of a room. You can't see through the visor. You can only see the environment that it produces. Augmented reality is a different approach. Augmented reality is to overlay things on top of what you see today. So HoloLens by Microsoft is a very different strategy than PlayStation VR. PlayStation VR is about blocking your view and creating a new environment. HoloLens is about looking at your living room and overlaying textures and colors. Magic Leap is what they call mixed VR. It can make the screen opaque and it can actually give both experiences. But the idea is that this is a set of glassware. Very small, it's not clunky like we're used to seeing with Oculus Rift. And this is something that very realistically will be the technology of the future for us to carry around and maybe not even have a smartphone anymore. But it's entirely driven through an eyeball type experience through eyewear. And then of course the interactivity has really come a long way. We no longer just sit there and watch TV, now we interact with it. One of the most common video content tools today are these user-generated applications. Meerkat, Periscope, Facebook Live. These are people like us that might be sitting in an environment like this that pull up our phone and immediately start broadcasting. And while you're broadcasting, other viewers are commenting, they're liking it, they're saying all kinds of things. And later on, we can rerun that entire broadcast with the entire history of who liked it, when and why, and what they said. One of the hottest concepts today is, I guess, best demonstrated through a company called Twitch. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of Twitch. This is very simple. This actually was released about the same time the original PlayStation 4 was released. There's a button on the controller of the PlayStation 4 that allows you to share. So whenever you're playing PlayStation 4, it is always recording the last, I believe, 30 seconds of gameplay. It's always recording it. And the second you do something really interesting, you press share. And it uploads it to this website called Twitch. So Twitch is nothing more than just video content of people playing games. And it was the fourth largest contributor to traffic in the United States. Twitch, who would have thought that? The experience is really important. So people want things now. They need things in real time. They want it on demand. People no longer watch broadcast TV the same way that our generation watches it. They binge watch, they watch everything on demand. Everything is online. Now we still have a long ways to go in certain countries as far as getting everybody online in terms of users, but more importantly in terms of businesses. If the businesses aren't there, then the e-commerce models in particular work very well, and we still need to drive that concept. Do it yourself. This is really important. We see that people want to be able to mix and match their own services. They want mobile by one company, but they want fixed by a different company. Maybe they want voice service from one mobile operator, but they want data from a different mobile operator. We're using dual SIMs, we're using dual phones. They want to be able to select what they're doing. The idea of having pre-established packages is it's changing a lot. The younger generation doesn't understand it the same way. They don't want to be told that they have 300 minutes or that they have 300 SMSs. Instead, they want the luxury of just picking and choosing what they want. And it all has to be social. Everything today is about sharing with your friends. So just a real quick snapshot. I'm not going to go into each one of these individual industries. These are all the different vertical segments that are part of this Internet of Everything. An $11 trillion opportunity by 2025. Each one of these will have a new group of companies that didn't exist before offering technology. Whether it's the smart home, whether it's things like the Nest, to be able to control the thermostat in your home in an intelligent way, so you can reduce your electrical bill, for example. Huawei does have significant investment in some of these segments, but not a lot of them make sense for telecom. Instead, they should be driven by those enterprises themselves. And the telecom contribution is creating a platform. So that means creating the APIs, creating the data tools, the analytical tools, the cloud environment. But it's up to the enterprise to come forward and figure out how these pieces all fit together. So the telecom operator of the future will be more like a box of Legos. It will be a toolkit, but it will not be a pre-assembled house. So this is just an interesting thing that the FCC did, where they've redefined their definition of broadband speeds. So up until, I guess, last year, what they considered to be broadband was 4 megabits per second. Now, I think that's quite low. Certainly for Japan, which has one of the fastest internets in the world, that's very, very low. But I live in Thailand, and I can tell you I'd be quite happy with 4 megs. But realistically, to get the experience that we are now expecting, because the content has grown so quickly, we need about 25 megs. So now they've respun this definition. 25 megabits per second is what we're calling broadband. That changes everything. That totally recalibrates where countries are. And Huawei has actually put a lot of time and money into something called our Global Connectivity Index. And I'm not sure if anybody's had the luxury of reading this, but it's a really, really good report where we gauge the readiness of each operator in each country based on a bunch of metrics about technology and user adoption and device availability. It's a very, very powerful document that I highly recommend. So just to put some of this in context with what operators are really doing, I don't think it's any secret that video is going to play a huge role in the future of the operators. Not every operator will do these transitions. Strategically, they may decide they don't want to do these transitions. There's nothing wrong with being a bit utility. Utility companies make money. That's the entire business model. But the ones that do invest in video can offer a whole new set of services. So AT&T in July of 2015 made a $49 billion purchase of DirecTV to get into the media segment. It wasn't the first time they'd done this, but it was the biggest one to date. They're currently courting Time Warner for $86 billion. And that's under review. And we'll see what happens, because if I understand correctly, Trump was not in support of that. But it's a testament to the fact that AT&T is really trying to position themselves as a media entity. Vodafone has their own in-home service where they actually have currently just under 10 million subscribers. LG Plus, I'll get back to in just a second. Telefonica is not that different from Vodafone, but what they've done to challenge the OTT competition is they focused on local language programming. So they happen to be in a lot of Latin American countries, and they currently have 2 million video users in Spain and Portugal. And they're the number one, and they've actually been able to keep OTT outside by focusing on local language. So they produce the most Spanish and Portuguese language programming available in the country right now. LTE Plus has done something very interesting. It's a mobile operator. It's all LTE, very high-speed services, but of all their packages, there's only 2 that don't already offer some form of video. And you pretty much have to fight to get those packages. So what that means is, by default, the same way mobile operators have said, we'll give you free minutes, we'll give you free SMSs, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. LTE Plus has said, we'll give you free video. So it's a very interesting model, and they've been able to put together an aggregate of all the content. So it's not just, some of it is their own programming, some of it is content partners, some of it is YouTube, but they also have a VR library as well. So it's meant to be an all-in-one shop for anything related to video services. So 50% of leading operators think video is the future. Well, I think that's a pretty obvious one. But it's not just video entertainment, it's also video communication. So Google just launched yet another person-to-person video calling application. It sort of compete with FaceTime. So it's a very natural experience. It's built into Android. The second you dial someone's number, you have the option of making a video call. And that's becoming a lot more common. Certainly with the younger generation, that's becoming the standard behavior. Also, the vertical applications, things like remote healthcare, make perfect sense. There's all kinds of applications in smart city when it comes to security or CCTV, where video also plays a very powerful role. Fixed mobile convergence. This is kind of no longer in the spotlight, but it's still a very powerful tool because mobile subscribers are still predominantly prepaid in a lot of markets. And that means they're very fickle users. They tend to change SIM cards as often as they load their card because there's always a new discount with the next operator. So we see this happening all the time. They have a data SIM that goes to one operator and a voice SIM that goes to another operator. When you actually get into the fixed business, it's not like that. The fixed business, people tend to be a little more loyal because it's more difficult to churn. There's some sort of credit facility there, so it's easier to upsell them on different things. So there's still a very powerful reason to deploy things like fixed assets, fixed network assets. But even if you can't do that today, what the mobile operators are doing is they're using a tool called WTTX. WTTX, or wireless to the curb, home, whatever it happens to be, is using 4G, 5G type technologies to provide the equivalent of a fixed line service. And they do that to test the hotspot areas with the idea of eventually rolling out something like fiber when it makes sense, when it makes economic sense. So it's a way of de-risking it and also very quickly being able to offer things like smart home services through a mobile facility. Price points as well. There's still a long ways to go with the price bundling between mobile and fixed. But users, we still struggle because we have traditional pricing models in mind. If you have a fixed service, you pay for a bandwidth speed. But if you have a mobile service, you pay by the amount of data downloaded. Two very different paradigms. But to the end user, what he cares about is how many hours of YouTube can I watch. And that's going to change whether he's on Wi-Fi at home or fixed, or whether he's out and about and he's watching on 4G. So our structure still is not quite aligned with the customer journey. There's still a long ways to go in that sense. That's where Facebook is making some inroads. So they actually have some free basic services where Facebook is partnered with key operators in 53 different countries, where as long as you have a SIM card, you can get basic free data. And that allows you to, surprisingly, get access to Facebook, but also some other partner sites. So it's an on-roading capability to get users' appetites up for data. The Internet of Things. I'm not going to talk too much about this because there is other people who speak about this, but this is a very serious investment opportunity for telecom. It's quite different than traditional business. It includes elements of business to consumer as well as business to business. And a lot of it is business to business. And the nice thing about the Internet of Things is that this fits more like the fixed type services than the mobile services. What I mean by that is they tend to be monthly subscription based. Nobody has prepaid IoT. That's not the way the model really works. IoT is about investments from enterprises for fleet tracking. They're not going to change 10,000 SIM cards every month when they have to add more load to those data packages. That's just not going to happen. Connected sensors as well. So you can see here some predictions as to how this industry will grow, but it's currently worth $46 billion. And that's today. So imagine what it will be in 2020. Really quickly, this is my only technology-related slide. I just want to talk a little bit about how we can get the network ready for these types of things. The first thing is spectrum. Spectrum is very expensive. Very, very expensive. In Thailand, every day, they are earning $380,000 US for every day for 900 megahertz spectrum. So it's very costly. And operators have to make a decision between when do I actually resize that and refarm it and use my 2G or 3G or 4G. And it's a very difficult question to answer. And it depends on a lot of things. It's not just about what the future is, it's also about what do people own. Do people only have 2G phones? Can I get them to buy a 3G phone? Can I get them to buy a 4G phone? Not every country is in the same place of this technology curve, but there are a lot of countries right now where there's still a lot of feature phones out there. And users just are not able to adopt smartphone technology as fast as we'd like. So this is a real tricky conundrum. So what we do is we actually look at these more traditional technologies and find ways to make them more efficient. So for example, squeeze a 3G channel into something that's smaller than a traditional 3G channel, so you can free up some of that spectrum. The idea of using multiple sectors. So traditional mobile network uses 3 sectors. Now we're getting up to 6 sectors and 12 sectors. That's another way to use your spectrum more efficiently. But they predict that we need to have 1 to 2 gigahertz of spectrum in a country to really hit the bandwidth performance we need for the applications of the future. There's all kinds of new ways to build sites that didn't exist before. We have indoor coverage, we have outdoor coverage, we have small cells, we have micro cells. You name it, there's a cell for it. And different operators approach this a different way. And it gives them different capability sets. We see some very different approaches where some invest in 4T, 4R, which is multiple input and output antennas, but maybe the handsets don't support it yet. So in the future, we'll be very well positioned. But for right now, maybe indoor hotspot coverage is more effective. So where you are in the adoption curve will really change the dynamics. Building the architecture in an agile way. So things like SDN. The idea of making the network stupid is just a bunch of roads. But the intelligence above that tells you how to get through those roads sits somewhere in the cloud. Rather than distributed to each one of those traffic lights on the road, it's now a collective intelligence. It helps reduce costs, it helps you make more intelligent decisions about your capabilities, and it also gives you a single point where you can open up that API again and allow someone else to control it. So for example, someone like Netflix is making a lot of money, but people start complaining because they feel, my movie isn't showing very clearly. Whose fault is that? Is it Netflix's fault? Or does Netflix actually have to have a partnership with every single operator out there and provide some sort of diagnostic tool set to say, well, that speed isn't fast enough for the Netflix service? Wouldn't it be great if those operators had an API, so when Netflix sees that I'm watching a video of a certain bandwidth, it can nail up that same bandwidth connection through the API. That's what we're talking about. That's just one example. And of course, following the technology evolution, so 5G will bring huge capacity increases, improvements for things like IoT and connecting people and cell sites and performance. And that's just around the corner. We already have 4.5G commercialized. I'm not going to talk about this just in the interest of time. This is more just a summary slide that brings it all together. But this is really under the concept of ultra broadband. Ultra broadband meaning both mobile and fixed, and the fact that we're talking about high speeds, 25 megabits per second and up. I just want to bring a little bit of attention to where the operators can go today. So this is a very simple graph. The white line is showing what operator revenue would potentially look like if they did nothing. If they just continue to do what they do today. The blue line is showing what could you do if you enhanced the voice experience. For example, VoLTE, or some sort of rich communication services. Things like messaging, basic photo sharing, maybe some location-based services, things that we tend to find in our Facebook Messenger or our Line Messenger application. Looking at the data experience will also significantly contribute to your revenue. This is everything from person-to-person video to video on demand to the VR experience. But there's also additional platforms on top of that. So building out the IoT infrastructure, building out the capability set to connect all these things no matter where they are, and then opening up platforms. So for example, I have a mobile money platform, I have a machine-to-machine platform, I have an IoT platform, I have a big data analytics platform, and I have APIs and tool sets that other enterprises out there can come into that and program how they need to. So why are we here today? These things are cool ideas, but some of them are maybe a little bit non-traditional thinking. And so operators tend to be nervous, or maybe it's more difficult to get shareholder support for some of these technologies. And people are used to a more traditional voice, ARPU-driven model. So sometimes, as I mentioned before, what stops technology on the people or on the devices. As much as we want people to be on 3G and 4G, there's still a tremendous number of users out there that have 2G handsets. And we need to get them off those handsets. They can't afford a 3G or 4G handset, so how do we do that? Well, we provide some sort of a financial capability for them through a subsidized handset or some other form to allow them to upgrade more simplistically. So a lot of these will take significant investment, and it's non-traditional investment from an operator perspective. So what Huawei does is we're just a facilitator here. We know people on both sides of the equation, people that have money to spend and people that want to spend money. But we're here to explain why this is good for both sides and why this is a great investment opportunity. This is truly a growing business. This is the future. We are creating the connectivity that will connect each individual as well as each IoT device. So this is very powerful. So I hope everybody in this room can have some very fruitful conversations in the afternoon. But certainly let's not lose sight of what we're talking about. This is tens, if not hundreds of trillions of dollars in terms of the industry, in terms of where we're going. So with that, I will leave you with it, and hopefully we can build a better connected world. So thank you.